I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about what we're going to journey together in. Some really powerful content that is not my own by any stretch of the imagination. And to be honest with you, not much of anything that I shared with you so far today was any of my own either. I've shared with you a journey that I've been on for, well, about 50 years. Can't even believe I can say that. March 2nd. March 2nd is the date. 2:33 a.m. Yep. Adar 12 on a Hebrew calendar, which is always around Purim, which has a mandate to drink a lot. There's a mandate. Yeah, L'chaim again. Anyway, tonight's going to be very different. I didn't share this earlier, but I'm going to share it now. The things that we've talked about this morning have all come from what I call the best success book in the world. I don't think that there's a better success book than this book. And I also believe that everybody else's success books, communication books, finance books, even marketing, even marriage books, parenting books, if they've got any good to any of them at all, and if the principles are long-lasting, they've all come from the same exact source. They've just changed the names a little bit, maybe, did a different order or whatever, and, made it their own. It's called, so they didn't plagiarize. So all day today, I've been actually teaching from that book because it's through this particular book that I really have found the answers to raising my kids and being married, and not just like surviving in marriage, but really like thriving in it and having great passion and very deep intimacy with each other, and being able to talk about things that most people can't talk about, or things that we couldn't talk about before without having a war or an earthquake or a tsunami or a twister, or sometimes all at the same time. We've had many of those where it felt like the earth was opening up and swallowing us in our wonderful lack of communication skills with each other, and just misunderstandings, just not being able to hear each other. And I really learned through this particular book on how to go through really hard times and how to come out on the other side just really, really blessed. And so I've been teaching from that book all day. You're actually going to be learning that book through the whole weekend. We're just not going to open it up for the weekend. I'm not going to tell you what page or site number where to find it, because generally when people do that, people fall asleep, which is a very sad thing. All of a sudden they take their life hat off and they put a religious hat on, and all of a sudden now it's time to snore. Or act differently, you know what I mean? To act a certain way to be able to hear it, which is a sad thing. It's a really sad thing. Because this particular book, if you read it like you read every other book that you read, you would be amazed of how alive it is and how directional it is and how much clarity will come into your mind. And earlier, right before we left for dinner, I said, stay out of uncertainty. Stay out of uncertainty. And we see throughout this amazing book that those who were certain in one direction, that it always worked well for them. And those that were not certain in a certain direction, it didn't always necessarily work out for them. So I'm going to open this book tonight with you. It is called The Bible. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but it has been produced more than any other book ever in history. The book is about 6,000 years old. It was first spoken. All these stories were first spoken generation to generation for about 1,000 years. And then it was penned, if you will. So I'm gonna just teach from this. And here's what I believe for this year, for this season of all of our lives. This is what I believe is coming for all of us, from the creator of the heavens and the earth. I believe that this is gonna be a really profound year for many people. I believe that it is going to be a year that you're gonna see a lot of new things. I also believe that that's going to be in direct relation to what you're able to let go of. I believe it's going to be directly related to what you allow to let go of and to release is you're going to have a bounty of new based on what you're letting free. So we're going to go back to a very, very old story, and we're going to find business techniques in here. We're going to find leadership techniques in here. We're going to find what to do when you're terrified and it doesn't look like it's going to go well for you, and what you should do when it looks like that. How many of you have ever been in a situation like that? How many of you are currently in a situation like that? Like you just don't know how it's all going to turn out, right? And so that's what we're going to see. And I have a question for you. Is there anybody here who you have a desire to walk closely with your Creator? Anybody? Okay, that's really, honestly? Like seriously? You're not playing around. Like you're serious about that. Like this is something that like cries out of you. Like you really, really want to. It's not this, I want to because I think I'm supposed to thing. It's you want to because you want to. Like it's inside of you, okay? So, did any of you hear about a lot of my failures today? Wait, let me ask that question again. Were you sleeping the entire day? Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again. How many of you heard about a lot of my failures today? Okay. And has that given you a little bit of hope? How many of you are like, I'm not as bad as she was? Okay, that's awesome. I haven't even scratched the surface yet either. I haven't even scratched the surface of my failures, like at all. So I want to kind of bring you up to speed as far as like, how did I get to this place on a spiritual journey growing up in an atheist and agnostic home? The man that raised me was an atheist. My mom was agnostic. Atheist meaning there is no God. And in his case, I'm not saying all atheists are like this, but the man that raised me hated Christians specifically. He didn't care about Hindus, he didn't care about Buddhists, he didn't care about all the other religions out there, but specifically Christians he hated with a passion. And I never found out why, but he just hated them. And he spoke that way all the time about them and just how untrustworthy they were and on and on and on and on and on, hypocritical and, you know, religious people that, religious people that. And so anyway, I didn't grow up, obviously, with a great impression about that, but something happened to me when I was 13 years old on October of 1982. Yeah, and something like that. It was like October 28th, something around there, and I like dates for some reason. And we got changed from a public school to a private one. My mom had broken her neck 2 years before. Almost exactly 2 years before, my mom had broken her neck diving into a swimming pool. She was 29 years old, and she was paralyzed from the neck down. And so she ended up, because the doctors had used her as a guinea pig without consulting her first, obviously there was a malpractice suit that happened, because when she got to the hospital after diving into the pool, she was in shock at first, so she was like totally like frozen. But by the time she got to the hospital, she was medevaced to the hospital, which didn't happen that often back then, but today it happens all the time. I think it's a great moneymaker. Anyway, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. She was moving by the time she got back to the hospital. And so she could feel her body and she was able to move her limbs. But when she came out of surgery, she was totally paralyzed from the neck down, completely paralyzed. They fried her nervous system. Her neck was actually not even fractured. To the extent of what they did once they got inside. And they put Harrington rods in her neck, which were actually designed for scoliosis in the back. So this was an experiment that they were doing on a certain number of different people. And so they just jacked my 29-year-old drug addict mother and put her in a really, really bad situation. And so 2 years later, they start getting installments from the hospital, from the doctors, whatever, right? So they start getting installments. So now all of a sudden, we're living in like a normal house, other than, you know, we had been living in an 850 square foot home in Southern California. And now we moved up about 8 hours north to a place called Redding, California. Actually 8 miles east of that, which is Palo Cedro, had about 700 people population, a lot of churches, 2 gas stations, 1 grocery store. Can you get the gist of the town? Okay, so we enrolled in a brand new public school. We were the new kids there. You know, we enrolled in August and, you know, started there. And 2 months later, my dad is going through my drawers in my bedroom, and he found love letters from Travis Sluter. Shut up. He was a cute little blonde kid. Anyway, so he found love letters from this kid named Travis Sluter. I need to look him up. That would be funny, wouldn't it? I'm going to look him up. I should easily be able to find him. That would be hilarious. Anyway, well, honestly, he and this love letters, the many of them, really was a catalyst that changed my life. My room is ransacked. These letters and everything, all my clothes are all over the room, and I'm one of those super organized kids, and I walk in and my room is destroyed. And he's screaming at me, and he's telling me that he's sending us to a private school where we have to wear dresses and we'll be watched all the time. Well, this atheist happened to find the only private school in town that happened to be a Christian school. Thank you, Travis, for writing the letters. And thank you, Dad, for going through my stuff. So, and why? Why was he screaming at me? You see, for so many years, I thought he just hated me. He was always picking on me, always putting me down, always telling me that I was stupid and I was as dumb as a doorknob and I couldn't do anything right. I'll never amount to anything. In all reality, in his own way, even though it was unhealthy, the fact is he pressed me and pushed me hard because he believed in me. But that's not what I perceived from him. In fact, I didn't perceive it until just a couple of years ago. That the reason why he put me down for my bad grades and kept pushing me to want to go to college and to do better in school and to stay away from boys. And when he found this letter, he said, "You're going to end up pregnant like your mother did." And I'm like, because I was told the two of them were virgins on their wedding night. Now, please tell me how an atheist comes up with a lie like that. Why does an atheist care if he was a virgin on his wedding night? It's a total lie. What did he care, right? So anyway, the next day we were enrolled in a school where we had to wear dresses down to our knees and it was like in these two little single wide trailers filled with mold. One of them was leaning. You've seen these poor schools, right? You know what I'm talking about. Why is it that Christian schools generally are always broke, right? Their teachers don't get paid anything. And anyway, so it's in this place, and I want you to imagine this. My parents are full-on avid pot smokers. It's all day, and in the night, they smoke pot, okay? So they're taking us to school. There's no bus to this little tiny, poor school. And me and my two sisters in our new dresses. I was an athlete. I don't wear dresses. It says the girl, no, this is a long shirt. But I did wear a long skirt today, exactly. So I was like a basketball player and like super like, as a fighter. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you walk in this thing? You know what I mean? Like, how do you sit in this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had no, do you understand? I grew up white trash, and then you put a dress on her. Do you understand? And the F word comes out of my mouth very often. Do you understand what I'm saying? So imagine these three girls are on their way to school. How many of you have ever been around a smoker? Just a regular tobacco smoker. When you go and you go to a person's house who smokes cigarettes, what do you walk out smelling like? Have you ever been around a pot smoker? What happens after you have been around a pot smoker who's smoking pot? What were you doing around someone smoking pot? So my parents roasted a big old fat Cheech and Chong joint every single morning, driving us to school in the car with the windows rolled up. Hot box, baby. My parents were hot boxing their three daughters. You know what a hot box is? I just explained it. You roll up all the windows and you fill up the whole car with smoke. So you get this personal high, and even when you're like breathing on your own, you're still getting more high, right? So I know I had my first contact high when I had to be at least 2 years old or perhaps like newborn status. Well, not newborn. My mom didn't meet Dan until I was 6 months old. So Anyway, so probably 6 months old is when I had my first contact high. I'm pretty sure. So now can you all bear with me and have compassion why I was stupid? Okay, my brains were fried as a baby, all right? So anyway, so I'd been hotboxed on the way to school. Could you imagine? Just think about this. So here's 3 girls that have never worn a dress, okay? We're all rough and tough. We don't know how to walk in a dress or shoes that you wear with a dress. Like, where's my high top tennis shoes? Okay? We just were hot boxed and it's 7:30 in the morning. It's the first day of school in a tiny little Christian school, and we walk in and what do we smell like? We smell like weed. We smell like weed. So obviously, there's all kinds of talk, right? People know that my parents don't go to church. Do you understand? So it was there in that first week in October. Imagine the trees are turning, right? The air is crisp. It's chilly in the morning. And a few days in, on a Wednesday, I had my first chapel, is what they called it, to where we actually got to get out of the mold-infested trailer and go into the church building where the church allowed the school to have their trailers, right? So here was the very first time I ever heard anything that had to do with the Bible. I was sitting in the back. The school principal, her name is Leilani Guido, a precious, wonderful, wonderful woman who you look a little bit like her, except for she had blonde hair. And she was a precious, sweet, soft-spoken woman who taught from the Bible, something I had never heard of. Do you understand? I didn't grow up in church or around church people. I grew up around alcoholics and drug addicts who hated anything that had to do with those kind of people. So she's teaching this message, and at the very end of that message, I began to weep. It was cold in that room. There wasn't music. Do you understand? It was just, she's teaching this, and something came over me. And I began to weep. And I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm weeping because I'm the new kid, and there are all these other kids. The entire school is in this one little tiny room, and I'm bowing my head down, not because I'm bowing my head to do something like pray, because I didn't even know what that was, but just trying to hide so that no one would see what I couldn't control. So everyone's leaving, and Leilani came back to me, and she said, "Do you want to meet Jesus?" And I said, yes. I don't know why I said yes, but I said yes. And she says, "I just want you to pray this with me." And she prayed with me. She gave me a Bible. I went home that afternoon, and something new had been planted inside my soul. I would run off in the field with that book that I could not read because I was dyslexic. I couldn't understand the words. But I would just hold it and I would talk to him, not knowing if I was doing it right or wrong, but I would just bare my soul after watching my dad beat my mom, go out and cry and talk to him. Or it had been the night before, my dad would come into my room and touch me and just run off into the field and just hold that book and talk to him. He really, really became my safe place. He really became my strong tower. He really became my comforter. He became my hiding place. I didn't have religion around me to tell me how to do it right or wrong, and I'm kind of grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that. I happened to have been in a Christian school, so I was forced to memorize scriptures. And I had this special little thing with what I would call my first love. Until I did what a lot of young people do. You know, I started meeting other kids from the school, and I started hanging out with some of them, and the secretary's son, he and I started hanging out together, going together, dating without dating. And I found real quickly that those Christian kids lived a different life than what they were showing at school. And they lived a different life than what they were showing in youth group. And they lived a different life than what they were showing at church. So I literally would see this, and I'd be like, once in a while, my dad would let me go to church with them, and I would be like, well, you're acting really strange. They would act so different when they were in that building and when they were in youth group. But when we'd be talking on the phone, they're dropping all kinds of nasty words from their mouth, and they're out drinking and partying and having sex. But boy, they knew how to straighten up as soon as they were in a church. They knew the game. And I remember getting pregnant when I was 17, and all the judgment that came from that place where I received the Messiah, all the accusations that I must have seduced him. He would have never ended up with me. It wasn't his fault. It was mine. I was the whore. I was the harlot. I was the seductress. That's not how it went. He badgered me for 3.5 years. And I finally fell into it. I finally said, all right. And we conceived a child our first time. She is now 31 and a half. Crazy and beautiful and wonderful and smart and a devoted mother and a devoted wife who's been through a hard, hard life. So I walked away from God when I was 18, and I'm totally responsible for that walking away. And I said, if I have to be like your people, I want nothing to do with you. Your people, blinkety, blink, 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 blink. I'm out of here. And I started to walk in the footsteps of the man that raised me and started to believe that there was no God. I don't know if you've been there before, but I allowed being hurt by religious people to stop my relationship with the one who truly loves. I allowed the example that they had set and my perception of their example. Do you understand? I'm 18. I'm 17, 18. I'm pregnant. I had been badly abused. I had been molested. Do you understand? So I had all this baggage that I brought into this. And now I'm looking through, again, my eyes that says I can't trust anybody. And so I judged them for judging me. So several years later, now I have businesses, and yes, I heard the voice of God say, pick up your mat and walk. I was terrified to step into a church. I was terrified to go near a Bible. I was terrified because that pain, the pain that I endured from the church was far more painful than any beating I ever had from my dad, far more painful than being molested, far more painful than my mother not doing anything when I told her I had been molested. There was nothing that I had experienced, no pain, like the pain of the rejection and the judgment and the false accusations that came from a people that positioned themselves as to be loving and kind and open. That rejection was more painful than being given up for adoption by my biological dad. So when I was 21, Hans and I got invited. It's actually on my 22nd birthday. 1993. I think that would have been 22, something like that. 23rd birthday. It was my 23rd birthday. And we arrived on the big island of Hawaii, and my husband's best friend picked us up and told us that Hans's mentor, Damien, who I had known for several years at that point, it was Hans's first mentor for money. The man's a multimillionaire. And his wife had died, and she was 30-something. And so Chris said, hey, come to church. And I'm like, what the? And I just started cussing like a truck driver. Not that all truck drivers cuss, because I don't think they all do, but this one did. Anyway, even though I wasn't one, I certainly could hold my own. Anyway, so my mouth just started just speaking so much wicked stuff out of my mouth. And I was like manifesting like a principality of darkness, just evil. And Chris just looked at me, he's like, dude, chill out. His wife just died. We're going to just honor him. His wife just died. So I ended up going, and there was a lot of people there, and there was this younger kind of African-American, actually Puerto Rican and African preacher. And he was sweating and spitting all over everybody and jumping around on the stage. And I'm sitting in the back with my arms locked. And I'm like, what the heck is this? What a fool. Look at all these losers in this place. They don't have a life. What a bunch of... I just sat there just picking people apart one by one as I'm watching this thing, and something hit my spirit. You're going to get bad karma. I'm like, You see, karma is what the metaphysical world calls the law of reaping and sowing. That's biblical. It's a biblical principle. It's a universal law. And so it just means that whatever you hand out is going to come back at you. And here's what I heard, like, you're going to have 5 jerks in your next seminar acting just like you. I'm like, So I elbowed Hans. I said, give me a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to start sowing good seed. I'm going to start sitting forward, and I'm going to start taking notes and acting like I give a rip. Chris elbows me. He's like, dude, you teach that at First Steps to Success. I effing know. I didn't know that was in the effing Bible. Could you imagine I'm sitting here and there's someone saying F-bombs at church? Why, a guest evangelist is could you imagine? Can you picture this? That was me. That was me. Don't ever judge those people. Don't ever judge those people. Don't ever go, shh. Just, God's moving. When someone's dropping an F-bomb in a church. Or 20 of them. So, could you imagine hearing that? I mean, you're like, oh gosh. So anyway, so I'm like, I know, man, I didn't know that was in the Bible. And so then Hans is like, dude. This is like a First Steps to Success, man. I'm like, I have to know. I didn't know that was in the Bible. This S is good. Some of you are the same way. You just haven't told anybody. Be free, man. Be free. Quit trying to live a lie. So anyway, at the very end of this thing, he has everybody stand up, and he says, just repeat this after me, and I just lost it. I just boohooed like a baby as I repeated that same prayer that I had prayed 10 years before and had walked away from for 5 years. And I remember just saying to him, but I'm scared. I don't want to get hurt. And he said, don't look to man, look to me. Don't look to man, look to me. And that's when I began my journey again, which coming up here is how many years ago? 27 years ago that I started back on my journey of walking with my first love, walking with the creator of the heavens and the earth, walking with my strong tower, the comforter, my safe place, my hiding place, the redeemer of every wicked thing I've ever done. I can honestly say with every fiber that is in me that apart from him, I can do no good. And apart from him, I truly am nothing. I would have absolutely nothing, and I know I would be dead. And I'm not talking dead spiritually, I'm talking dead physically. I was on a path of suicide, and I don't live there any longer. So I don't know if you have a journey similar to mine, or that you are in that same place where it's like, man, I don't trust those religious people. I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. Sadly, we have very few good representatives of what that great success book is. Very few people who live it. And the reality is that just because people say they believe it doesn't mean that they're perfect. Unfortunate thing is that too many people have tried to look perfect and are completely unrelatable. There's too many leaders in some of those religious places where there's just no connectivity because we've exalted them, and some of them have exalted themselves to be sinless, which is why I will not position myself like that. But I will tell you my failures and my faults and my weaknesses so that you can see the glory of God and what he can do with a broken, nasty, trashy vessel. That he's willing to use something that's so disgusting and that he can make something new and amazing out of it. So I'm living proof that he's alive, and I'm living proof that miracles do happen. If that book isn't enough to show us that it is real, I have done my very best to live that out, and I have failed again and again and again over the last 27 years. I mean, huge. I've had huge failures, and yet Look at him, so loving, so kind, so amazing, that he would speak to a broken whore who's about to give her body over as a prostitute for cocaine, and that he would rescue her out in that very moment. Whereas so much of our church minds say, as long as you pray X amount of hours a day, as long as you do everything right, then he will bless you. Well, I wasn't doing any of that, and he blessed me. So many people that say, you've got to do X, Y, and Z in order for your prayers to be heard. And you have to make sure and jump through this hoop of fire. And you have to make sure that you say it like this. And you have to make sure that you go to church every day for an hour. And make sure you attend mass. And make sure you do this if you want your prayer to be answered. I didn't do any of that. He heard the cry of my heart. He saw me wanting to die. And he rescued me. I didn't deserve it. You don't deserve it. But it's because of his unfailing love that he does these things for you and I. He's the one that guided me to start that business from the trunk of my car in the payphone booth. He was the one that was speaking to me, fighting against the objections that were in my own head. He was the one that blessed the work of my hands, which is in that Bible. Now, here I didn't know I was teaching his word and teaching his principles as an atheist from the stage, doing First Steps to Success, where thousands of people had gathered and came and took notes, one of which was Jennifer Ratchford, who I led on a very strong metaphysical path, and she stayed there for a very, very long time. And so how can it be that somebody who is not walking with God could be preaching his word? Wait, I didn't go to seminary. I didn't have ordination papers. I didn't get a degree in theology. But those 5 years in a private Christian school of memorizing scriptures. I also had to memorize all the history dates that you had to memorize. I also had to memorize the algebraic equations that you had to memorize. I had to memorize all that botanical stuff and that other science stuff. And the geometry figures, got a D in geometry. I had to memorize all that junk too, just like the rest of it. But how come it was that the word of God was the thing that I remembered? Why is it that that was the thing that was coming out of my mouth? Why is it that was the thing that I was following, and how I dug myself out of a pit of despair? Dug myself out of a pit of laziness and fear, and began to activate and believe like Abraham believed. And God honored it, even though I wasn't a churchgoer, even though I wasn't tithing. Oh, I was giving and helping other people who couldn't help themselves, but I wasn't a church member. I hadn't been baptized in fire, and I hadn't been baptized in water yet. He uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So we've created all these rules. So after I gave my life back to him, I got very confused right away. I started going into a church about 4 months later because, again, I was really, really terrified. Right away, I started listening to every audio and video that the man that was preaching. I bought everything off of his table and started listening to it like crazy. And finally got the courage to head up into a building, and that was a scary thing. And I remember just getting confused, like, wait a second, they started talking about your calling. They started talking about, your purpose and your destiny. And I remember just getting so confused, like, what is that? Am I supposed to close my business down and go to seminary and become a preacher because I am a teacher already? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to walk away from my life and do all this? And of course, the answer from the religious community is yes. But man, when I started reading that book, I found that those kind of people didn't exist, meaning the ones who walked away from all of that and did this whole other thing that was this man-made thing and our modern day thing. What do I mean by that? Well, Daniel, how many of you have heard of the prophet Daniel? The prophet Daniel, in today's world, if he was at perhaps maybe your church or your friend's church, he'd have been told that he was wicked and he wasn't walking with God because he was serving a wicked king, and his job was to manage all those that read tarot cards and practiced divination and read palms and were psychics. That was his full-time job, and he was a political advisor to the king. So as a king who didn't worship the one true God, but he worshiped Baal, a different God. So if that guy went to our church, we would be saying oh, dude, you're not in God's will, man. You ain't in God's will because you work for this wicked guy and your job is managing those who read tarot cards and read palms and horoscopes and practice divination and witchcraft. Are you kidding me? You got to get out of that job. You got to do something for the Lord. If you love God, you'll walk away from that. Could you imagine if you took that ridiculous advice? Could you imagine? If you took that advice, some of you have given that advice to somebody. Some of you have received that advice from somebody. Thank God he didn't. Because he led 3 different times the people in that kingdom to God. Because 3 different times, God saved his butt right in front of all of them. The lion's den. You remember that story? Daniel, and this is the Daniel I'm talking about. That lion, that he would never have been put in the den if he hadn't been caught praying. And if he hadn't refused to follow in those ways. So very boldly he stood. He had a job, political advisor, managing those who practice witchcraft. So when I would see this, I would see Abraham, who we're going to look and study tonight. He's a wealthy businessman. His sons were wealthy businessmen. But here you go to church and you're hearing the story of, oh, that's wicked. Money is wicked. If you make money, you're wicked. Money is wrong. No, the love of money, which is idolatry, is wicked. But money itself is nothing but a tool that you can help to change lives with. So as I read this thing cover to cover, I found for myself that what I was hearing wasn't lining up with the book. So I just kept reading the book. And what? I have 45 minutes on a Sunday with the pastor. I can't possibly learn the whole book in 45 minutes once a week. It's impossible. And unfortunately, too many of us put that kind of pressure on a pastor and an expectation on the leader of the organization, expecting that we're supposed to become spiritually mature on 45 minutes a week. You can't become spiritually mature on 45 minutes a week. You got to seek him on your own, and you got to test everything that's coming from their mouth. And if you don't read it yourself, you don't study it yourself, you have no idea what you're hearing is truth or fallacy. So, I'm on my 15th time through right now. Cover to cover. Starting in Genesis, ending in Revelation. Starting in Genesis, ending in Revelation. I'm back in Genesis again. Why? Because it's January. That's why. It's not that hard to do. And I tell you, you're the one that said you want to get closer to God. Well, if you don't know what's in that book, you can't possibly. You're depending on man to interpret him to you. Seek him first, not your pastor first. Not your favorite televangelist first. Not your favorite spiritual mentor first. Seek him first. Those are all great substitutes like vitamin C, vitamin E. Those are all great substitutes, but it's not the main course. The main course is something that you're supposed to seek himself. So I asked you when I started this, how many of you want to get closer to him? Let me see your show of hands. What are you willing to do to make that happen? What are you willing to do to hear his voice? What are you willing to do to press in that you would be led by him like Abraham was? So I want to show you exactly how I read through this thing. I want to show you exactly how to draw revelation from it. I want to show you exactly business things that are inside this one chapter, Genesis chapter 24. If you have your Bibles, and I'm really sorry I forgot to tell you to bring them. If you want to go get it, you can, but I'm going to keep talking. If you don't, and if you have a phone, have it on airplane mode. Turn off your notifications, and I'm sure you have like 17 Bibles on your phone like I do. You can turn to Genesis 24. Genesis 24, verse 1. So here's a question. So when I read this verse, and it says, and Avraham, which is his Hebrew name, and by the way, I'm reading from this one. I love this one. I recommend this one. This one is called The Scriptures. It's by the Institute of Scripture Research. And what it did, it's the closest Bible in my understanding. I could be wrong, but from all the research that I've done, I'm a bit of a researcher, but I'm not perfect. This is the closest that I've personally seen to the original Hebrew text, okay? This translation. And things get lost in translation. And I want to get as close to the original form as possible, which is why I've taken Hebrew lessons. So what they also did that I love in this one is they left the Hebrew names in here. They didn't give American names or English names to the people in the Bible. It kept their Hebrew names right in the text. Also, they kept the name of God in the text. God has a name. He has a name. Elohim in Hebrew is God, but he has a name. And his name is written in here hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds of times. And one of the 10 commandments is, do not bring my name to naught. Don't bring my name to nothing. And yet our Bibles that we read out of once a week or once a year, they took his name out. And they gave him a function, a title, God, Lord God. His name is not Lord and his name is not God. He has a name. So if you think about how many times it says, in my name, worship my name, and we're not doing it. We've literally brought his name to absolutely nothing. So I love this one because every time his name shows up, it's in Hebrew, because his name is in Hebrew, and so it's in here. So I'm going to read from this, so you're going to hear me stumble through a little bit of Hebrew. And I have fellow Jews in the room. Be compassionate and gracious with me. California girl now living in Texas with Hebrew blood. Be nice. Okay, so, which I'm so excited you're here. I love learning with that. Okay, so here it is. So here's the questions that I get. When I come across a passage like this, Genesis 24, verse 1. Hold on. Father, I just thank you so much for your word. I praise you and I say Shabbat Shalom again to you. I thank you for your rest. I thank you for the rest inside of my soul right now and the souls that are here. Thank you, Father, for every brother and sister that is here, every man, woman, and child. Thank you, Father, that your word is alive. It is alive. Father, I pray that you give us spiritual ears to hear you. I pray you prepare our hearts to receive you. Father, you saw the hands. You know the hearts. You know the desires of their hearts. You know the tears that are on their pillows. You know where the suffering is. You know where their pain is. You know what their past is. You know exactly how to bless them, and you are the one that designed this message for them tonight. So, Father, I pray that you prepare their hands, their feet, their eyes, their ears, their everything to be able to hear your truth, not mine, but to hear yours. Father, illuminate your understanding inside of us, and let us not walk out of here the same, but let us be changed through and through. I ask these things in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, that is Jesus the Messiah. Amen. And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yahweh had blessed Abraham in every way. That's where I stop. What? What? He's an old guy and he'd been blessed in every way. So what questions should come to our mind when we read something like that? What is in every way? What does that mean? What's another question that could be asked? Why? Why him? That's what came to my mind. Have you ever noticed that there are some people that are more blessed than others? Let me see your hands. So you've got two options when you see that some people are more blessed than others, or more blessed than you. You've got two options. What's one option? Ask why and do what with it? Go find out. Go learn. Search it out. And the second option is, Brad, to complain, to whine, to get jealous, to judge, to belittle their blessing. Those are two options whenever we see that somebody was highly favored or blessed. So I used to be the chick that got jealous and would judge and belittle who they are and take them down to my level. And I have suffered because of that. So now it is like, dude. What's up with that? How is it that he was blessed in everything that he did? So then what it says in my margin of my Bible is, Lord, if you could do it with him, then do it with me. If you did it with him, do it with me. Teach me what I need to know that I may be blessed like Abraham. So I start to study Abraham. Amazing leader, phenomenal historical figure, phenomenal businessman, phenomenal community leader, phenomenal deal maker. If you study his life, you will learn so much about business, so much about money, so much about how to walk with God. So you said you want to walk with God. You said you want to be blessed. Have you studied Abraham? And are you choosing to walk in his footsteps? A promise was given to him. I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse those that curse you. That promise is still alive today. Whoever blesses the Jews is blessed, and those who curse the Jews are cursed. You see it amongst the nations throughout all of the Hebrew history. If you actually spent just a little bit of time looking at Hebrew history, you will see that after the book of Revelation, the Bible wasn't done being written. The Bible is the history of the Jews. That's what it is. It's the histories of the Jewish people and the Gentiles coming into the understanding of the God of Israel, which is the father of Abraham, the first of all Hebrews. So that's the first thing that I asked is like, hey, why? What's up? Why him? Because when I go and look at him, I don't know, do you know anything about Abraham's past? Ooh, some church people could look at Abraham and say, oh, you did not honor your father. You left him. Yeah, that could be said about Abraham. He didn't honor his parents. He just up and left with his wife and his employees and his nephew. He brought division in the camp. He's an evil guy. It's true, he did leave his father. He did. Older in age, he just up and he left. He left with his wife, who had no children, and his nephew, and his employees. We're out. He did it in honor, but he left. What's another thing you can say about Abraham? He lied. Twice recorded. Who knows how many more times unrecorded? Yeah. Know what he did? He told his wife, who was old. She was like 80 years old. 80. And apparently she was hot. This chick was gorgeous. She was so hot that her husband said, listen, when we head into Egypt, I need you to tell them that you're my sister and not my wife, because they will kill me to get you. Sure enough, man, they come into Egypt, and here comes Sarah in her stilettos, walking and shaking all that thing with a pretty red lipstick on, her finest of desert clothes, her beautiful long hair that must not have gray in it, or maybe it's long gray hair, her pretty little batty eyelashes at 80. You know what my prayer is? Father, make me as beautiful as Sarah. Because this happened 10 years later too. So sure enough, he lied and said, this is my sister. And she lied and said, yes, this is my brother. And Pharaoh took her to be his wife. At 80 years old, she was so hot that a king wanted her. A king could have a 14-year-old, an 18-year-old, which is what they did in those days. He wanted an 80-year-old. I don't know, maybe he had some strange fetish. Either that or she was really, really, really amazing. But then 10 years later, after she had Isaac, same thing happened. He told her, don't tell that king that we're married. You're my sister. I got the deal. We did this 10 years ago. Lied again. Lied again. So he wasn't perfect. Here's another great one. His wife is barren. He gets a promise from God that God was going to make his descendants as many as the sand of the seashore and as many as the stars of the sky. That's how many of the descendants that he would have. Like, you can't count them. You won't be able to count your descendants. He's 90. She's 80, right? So she gets it in her head like, dude, I'm still not having a kid. Listen, here is my 20-year-old servant, my employee. She's my administrative assistant. Why don't you go ahead and sleep with her, and we will obtain a child by her. Oh, because that's really smart. So Abraham just goes, all right, I'll oblige. Wow. Just doing it for the Lord. So he knocks her up. So now we know it's Sarah is the problem and it's not Abraham. So obviously, I mean, come on, you're 80. You got stuff dragging, shaking, and moving all over the place. Your chin's down here. Probably not. She had to be beautiful. So anyway, so she's not as beautiful as Hagar, I can't imagine. She's not 20. You think she might have some jealousy? Of course. Might feel threatened, feel insecure, no question. So Abraham was not a perfect wise man. How could he not see that this was a possible equation? That perhaps my 80-year-old wife might feel a little threatened when I have this 20-year-old that's hanging all over me all the time. And that she gets pregnant and now my 80-year-old knows that she's the reason. That it wasn't me that was seedless, but it was her who had the inability to conceive the seed. How did he not see that? So he wasn't in perfect wisdom. He wasn't sinless. He wasn't a perfect man. But God blessed him in all his ways, in everything he did. Tells me a couple of things that we're not going to talk about tonight, because we're going to move on to something else. Let's keep going. And Abraham said to his oldest servant of his house, who ruled over, Linda Potgieter, this is for you, who ruled over all that he had, please put your hand under my thigh. Okay, this is a neat custom. I want to try it one time. Put your hand under my thigh. You're like, what? This is how they took an oath. Put your hand under my thigh. This is also how they received a blessing. Put your hand under my thigh. It's also how they received an inheritance. Put your hand under my thigh. Touch my hamstring. So he grabs his oldest servant of his house who ruled over all that he had. So who did he pick? Who did he nominate for something important to do? Someone that was trustworthy. How does someone become trustworthy? The guy's been faithful with the little things. The guy's been faithful with the little things. He has a track record. Let's keep going. Some of you are trying to fill some positions right now. Some of you are looking for talent. Don't get desperate. Don't lower your standard. Don't talk yourself into hiring someone who doesn't have the track record that you're looking for. Hold your standard. Vet the person out. Don't look for what's easy. Understood? Put your hand under my thigh, so that I make you swear by Yahweh, the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. But to go to my land and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Yitzhak. Did I do it? Thanks, Vatel. Thank you for teaching me that. And the servant said to him, which by the way is Isaac in your Bible, but Yitzhak is his name. What if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land from which you come? Let's stop right here. So let me tell you what I see. I want to know if you see anything that I'm not seeing. So first, he's blessed in every way. So this causes me to go back and study Abraham to find out what qualified him for so much blessing. And I have studied Abraham for a good 20 years. Two, obviously, what do you see in Abraham? If he is appointing somebody to send to the land in which he left, where his dad and his siblings and now his cousins and everybody's at, what are you seeing as him, the businessman? We already see two practices that he has as a businessman. What's the first one? He delegates, but who does he delegate to? He delegates to someone that has a track record, that is responsible, that has been able to take orders in the past and deliver on the goods. That's who he appoints to do this very, very important job. Okay, so let's talk about delegation. If somebody has the courage to delegate, what does that tell you about the person? Huh? He's not controlling. He's not controlling. He's not a controlling leader. Controlling people can't delegate. Controlling people won't raise up other leadership. He chooses to hand trust to this person. We see also that he doesn't try to control the outcome by going to the land in which he came from by himself. I'll do it myself. I don't trust that anybody else in my command is going to do as good of a job as I would. He has thousands of people he's responsible for. And Yitzhak is the promised son who is his heir, who is going to inherit all of his wealth. And he is willing to delegate his authority. He is willing to not control the situation. He's willing to appoint someone else with instructions on what to do. This is powerful leadership. There's too many leaders and managers that micromanage, hold people back, will not give people the opportunity to show their best. And on the other side, there's codependent leaders who have a tendency of lowering their standards consistently in crisis management. So because they won't let go or go and do what needs to be done, they end up always having to reach for second best, third best, fourth best. You'll not get ahead if you do that. He appoints the best. He gives them full authority, full delegation, and does not try to control it. Let's keep going. How many of you have employees, or you're leading a sales organization or leading a church? Okay, are you writing this stuff down? Because this is what Abraham is teaching me right now. This is why it's important to read it every day, because there's amazing stuff that comes out. Okay, so next, and the servant said to him, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? I know we already read it, but what is that? Abraham has a vision. He has a promise. He wants his son to marry somebody that comes from his bloodline versus the place where he's watched this other culture that he knows is not going to be healthy for his son and not healthy for his future bloodline. So he's not going to lower his standards. He wants to keep the standard. He appoints the right guy, and now what comes to him? What's the answer that the employee says? What? Yes, he gives him an excuse. He gives him an objection. But what about? I love but what abouts. I want you to write that down. But what about, in parentheses. But what about? But what if? But what about? What about if? Write it down. We all have a list of what abouts. And we have a long list of what ifs. We all do. We all have these lists. And if we don't handle our own objections, we're just going to keep making that list longer. So, check out the answer. And Abraham said to him, beware lest you take my son back there. Not an option. No go. You're not taking my son back there. Verse 7. Yahweh Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your seed I give this land. He sends his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. What's that? People, please don't act like you're in church. Friends, think. I'm not going to tell you. Think. What did he just do? He gave him a guideline. What else did he do? He empowered him. And he reminded him of the vision. So he answered the objection with the story, is what he did. He answered the objection with the story. Yo, bro. You know how this deal came out? It was Yahweh that told me to leave my father's house. It is also him that promised me that this land that we are in is for me and my descendants for all generations. There is no way we are going back there. So that's a no-go. Remember? That's why we all left. That's why we're here. That's why we had to go to Egypt, because there was no food, and then we came back here. Do you remember all that? Do you remember the animals that died? Do you remember how God has sustained us here? There's no way that he's brought us here to take us back there again. So he answered the objection. He empowered the man with the story of what they have already walked through. Facts tell, stories sell. Verse 8. And if the woman refuses, and this is awesome, this is how he diffuses the fear. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released. What? You shall be what? Released from the oath. Only do not take my son back there. All right, so look. How does he handle this objection? He handles the objection with what? Come on, friends. A story. The reminder of who they are, who he is, and what the promise is. And then he takes it one step further, which is a risk reversal. And the risk reversal is, dude, if she doesn't come, you're released from this oath. If this product doesn't work for you, you get your money back. If you don't like the way it tastes, you get your money back. If it makes you burp, you get your money back. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's a risk reversal. So he takes the pressure off of his manager. He takes it off. He removes the pressure from him. By the way, Abraham is probably in the First Testament of the Bible, next to Yeshua, is probably one of the greatest shepherds to look at. And a shepherd, by the way, in the New Testament, where it says that God has given gifts and called people to be evangelists and apostles and all of this stuff, and one of the words is pastor. It's not a word that's actually a real word in the scriptures. It's actually shepherd. It's the word shepherd. And so Abraham shepherds his people. Remember, King David shepherded his people the way he shepherded the flocks. And so if you want to learn how to be a great manager of people, a good influencer of people, study a shepherd. And so here is Abraham knowing the guy is afraid, he is trustworthy, and in the moment the fear rises up like, oh my gosh, what an impossible task. Come on, could you imagine? Could you imagine? You have this person that you respect so much, right? It might be the CEO of your organization. It might be the pastor of your church. It might be the bishop of this, or it might be the president of that, okay? And they have called you into their office and say, I need you to do something really, really important, and our entire bloodline is dependent on it. Our entire family fortune is dependent on it. Our entire future and legacy is dependent on this one task. How many of you would go, I'm not the one for the job. I'm out. I don't get paid to do that. How many of you would feel like so honored that you'd been given a task like that? But how many of you, in feeling honored, you would be like, you're weighing the cost. Like, you want me to go find a chick for your son? What if she's not pretty? What if he doesn't like her? What if she won't come? What if this doesn't work? But what about her parents? But what will they say? But what about, come on, what are your whatabouts? What are your whatabouts that you've been handing to the leader that you have been working with? What are the whatabouts that you have been giving to God when he says, I want you to go, I want you to go build this, I want you to go and I want you to talk to that person, I want you to go and I want you to learn how to pay off your debt, and I want you, and you're saying, but what about I don't have enough time? But what about my kids? But what about my spouse? What about my unsupported spouse? What about my debt? What about my car that's not working? But what about my boss? But what about the people I work with? But what about? I want you to write down 5 whatabouts right now, because they're the very thing that's standing in your way. What are your whatabouts? Somebody give me one. But what about the fact that I don't have enough experience? Had this guy ever picked a wife for a leader before? Could he have said that? Could the manager have said, but I've never picked a wife for someone before. I don't have experience with that. Okay, give me another what about? Huh? Louder. Age, what do you mean? You're too old? Or what? Okay, so one of your whatabouts on your list is I'm too old? You ain't even 40. You ain't even 40 and that's one of your whatabouts? 40 is a baby. I'm just a little older. What about my past failures? What about my past failures? This is too big of a project. Here's a good what about. What about him? Do him instead. Yeah, but I think he's qualified. What about him? Come on, give me one of your whatabouts. Say again. Someone else will think. Okay, well, but what about what people will think if I do this wrong? Then they're going to say that I failed you. Then I'm going to have a bad reputation. I'm not going to be in good standing with everybody anymore. I'm going to look like a fool. What about how I'm going to feel if I fail? Okay, that's one of your whatabouts? What if I succeed? So what do you mean by that? Oh, thank you. What if I don't manage it right? What if I do find the right person, but I don't manage it right? What if we get killed on the way home? It could happen. What if I find the wrong one? What if I get in the wrong business? What if I'm in the wrong job? What if I married the wrong person? What if it's not what God wants because he don't know how to make anything happen? I just got to ask you, how many of you often question that you're doing something that he doesn't want you to do? You know what I tell him all the time? You know how I handled that one? You know how I flipped that sucker around? My fear of failing him, my fear of doing wrong by him, my fear, absolute fear. You want to know how I did it? Here's how I did it. Dude, you know what? This book shows me that like you sent angels to wake up Joseph in the middle of the night to tell him that he needed to get his wife and kid out there because they're going to come and kill him. And you told him to move his butt to Egypt. You also turned a bush on fire that never consumed it to get a message to Moses. I am that dumb. I am that hard-headed. So if I'm heading in a direction and I'm not supposed to go, I know that you can send an angel. I know you can part the Red Sea. I know you can wake a man up in the middle of the night and tell him to move. I know that you can bring water from a rock. I know that you can raise the dead. I know that you can send an angel. If you send an angel to talk to a 14-year-old girl to say, blessed are you amongst all women. So I know you got your ways. So if you really don't want me doing something, you better do something about it. Because you said that if I seek you first and your kingdom, then all these things would be added unto me. You said that I trust in you and not in my own understanding, but in all my ways I acknowledge you, which is what I'm doing right now, that you will direct my path. You said to make my plans plain and make them plain and bring them before you, and you would bless them. You said you would bless the work of my hands. So if my hands are in a direction they ain't supposed to be, I am pretty darn confident between Gabriel. Please don't send Gabriel. He seems to scare everybody. I don't want to pee myself in public. But if it has to be Gabriel, I'll gladly see him.
Yes, amen.
You spoke out of an ass. You spoke out of an ass. I'm pretty sure that if I'm on a horse heading the wrong direction, you know how to make the horse talk to me. It's true.
Wow. That's good.
So look at this. You either don't believe him or you believe you're more powerful than him. That's the only conclusions I can come up with at the moment. Give me some time, I'll come up with a couple more, but that's my current conclusion. You really don't believe that he is all-knowing, he is all-powerful. But Danny, what if I do something and it turns out really bad? Oh, you mean like Abraham leaving his father's house and then all of a sudden there is a drought and there is a famine? And that was by whose hand? Whose hand was the famine? God's. Did Abraham cause the famine? Did he cause the drought? No. By whose hand did the drought and the famine come? Whose? Whose? Oh, what? I'm so sorry. This does not fit into your little Sunday school little picture, thick, fat little picture page book. That God is good and Satan is bad. Grow up. You're not in Sunday school anymore. He brings death and life. He blesses and he curses. That is what that book says. So what was the purpose of the drought? Did he not get blessed? He ended up going to Egypt, and that's where he collected wealth. He also got a son named Ishmael. So God used the drought to bring Ishmael, Hagar's son, Abraham's son, to bless, and those descendants are still on the earth today. Fighting, of course, against Israel. They're still fighting. They haven't stopped fighting. And Abraham was given great wealth leaving Egypt. It's a test of faith. It's a test of faith. Will he follow me? Take your whatabouts and turn them upside down. Answer your whatabouts with a story. And then step out and head towards what you're supposed to head towards.
Amen.
Which is what the whatabout is trying to stop you from. The excuse, the fear, the wanting a guarantee of a great outcome. Notice that Abraham was not looking for a guarantee. This is why he was blessed in every way. He was not looking for a guarantee. If he was looking for a guarantee, he would have went back to the land himself and handpicked her himself. He charged this man and said, dude, do you not remember who our God is? He has messengers set before you. Now go. And if she does not come with you, you are released from this oath. Risk reversal. Took the pressure off. That's what a good shepherd does. Take the pressure off. Relax, man. Let me tell you what faith is. It's an adventure. It's exploration. It's never about being right. It's about finding what is. It's an adventure. It's exploration. It's an adventure. It's exploration. It is not about being right. It's not about looking good. It's about trust. It's about stepping out into a place that is unknown, unfamiliar, that there is no guarantee, that you cannot control the outcome. And by the way, control is nothing but a lie. It's nothing but a lie. You can't control anything. You can't even control your own mouth. You can't even control your own thoughts. You try to control other people. Try to control your customers. Try to control your clients. Try to control your employees. You try to control your boss. You're trying to control the president of the United States. No one can control that sucker. No one. No one but God. It's amazing. So he handles the objection. He gives a risk reversal. I hope you wrote that down. That's a very important thing to understand to do when you're leading people, is to take the pressure off of them. Don't control the outcome. This is something that we taught. There's so many of you that have so many questions about your kids and how do I handle an unruly teenager, or how do I handle an unruly toddler? How do I handle my unruly adult children? Stop trying to control them. There's a difference between protection and control, and protection is healthy. Control is manipulative, which is, according to the Bible, rebellion, insubordination, and witchcraft. When you're trying to control your children, you are performing the act of witchcraft, divination. So when our daughter Erica was 12 years old, she had come to me and I made a big mistake. She asked if she can go camping at the lake with her 12-year-old friend. And I knew the parents and I knew the little girl, and I'm like, yeah, totally, absolutely. So Erica goes upstairs, she gets all packed, she's starting to walk downstairs with her little duffel bag and all of her camping stuff as Hans is walking in the door. And he takes one look at her and he says, where are you going? I'm going camping. And he said, no, you're not. I need to talk to your mom. Go back upstairs. So she does. I am fuming. You controlling dictator, you. I was an unhealed wife that had a judgment against my father, who was a dictator. And I was judging my gentle husband with the judgments I had against my dad. And just firing away. And I was boiling. And I said, why do you have to be so controlling? He says, Danny, God has mandated me as a father of that little girl. And I have no idea if her friend's father sees it the same way. I have no idea if her friend's father will protect her the way I will protect her. I have no idea if he's going to let them ride bikes around the lake by themselves, run into a bunch of boys. I have no idea if perhaps they might end up getting abducted in some way. I have no idea if he will watch over my daughter, or if he even watches over his own daughter in that way. So I start crying. I'm like, I love you. So we call Erica downstairs. And he explained it to her. He said, Erica, God's mandated me as your protector. And I know that her parents love their daughter probably as much as I love you. But I have no idea if they watch out for things the way I do. So at this time, we're going to say no to this camp out. Maybe in the future, it may happen as I get to know her father a little bit more, and I get to watch and observe their style of protection over their kids. But until then, for now, I'm going to say no. Big smile on her face. Thank you, Dad, for protecting me. No bad attitude, no back talk, nothing. Because she heard the voice of the protector versus the voice I grew up with that says, because I said so. Control, manipulation, pressure, is poor leadership. It's poor leadership. But protection and communication is good leadership. It's shepherding your people, whether those people are your children or the team that you manage or inspire and motivate, or it's your customers. Bless them. So fear tries to force what isn't to be what is. Fear, control, and manipulation tries to force what isn't to be what is. Force will backfire on you. I'd rather walk in the adventure of faith and exploration. It brings fulfillment. Let's keep going. Let me say this too, I forgot this. Faith steps out and goes, doesn't try to control the outcome. Faith doesn't fear being wrong. Faith is looking for which path will result in what they're looking for. They're not trying to force a path. Do you understand? Faith doesn't force a path. Faith is looking for the path. They're not trying to make an apple into an orange. Not trying to make something be that isn't. If it isn't, then we look somewhere else. Does that make sense? It keeps looking. Take your timelines off if they're pressuring you to manipulate and control other people. If you've got a timeline that's too aggressive, it's going to pull the worst out of you and everyone else that's around you. Let's go down to verse 10 or verse 9. Then the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham. He gave him a little tickle, and his master and swore to him concerning this matter. I wanted to see if you were awake. And the servant took 10, listen to this, and the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left, for all his master's good gifts were in his hand. And he arose and went to Aram Naharaim, close, to the city of Nahor. Nailed it. Pause. What did that just say? Huh? Stand up and say it again. Yes, he took action. What else? Okay, I'm going to repeat what it says. And the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left. For all his master's good gifts were in his hand. And he arose and went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor. Yes! He was prepared to get the bride. Are you prepared to receive the thing that you're believing for? Are you prepared to receive the thing you're believing for? Are you prepared to receive the thing you are believing for? If he would have left with no camels and no jewelry, no gold, no silver, no garments, would he have obtained the bride? If he left with nothing, if he didn't leave with the bride price, what would he have definitely not found? Not found a bride. So friends, you're believing and hoping for something, but you are prepared for. Thank you, Mona. What are you prepared for? What are you prepared for? What are you prepared for? How? What proves it? I remember in my early days in business, I had set a goal that I wanted to close 10 people that month. So I would have 10 applications with me. I'd have 10 sets of scripts. This is before I had compiled the script book, but it was all the scripts. I had 10 packages of product with me because I was prepared to get someone started now. If I'm showing up empty-handed, am I prepared to receive what I'm asking for. You're gonna get what you're prepared to receive. You're gonna get what you're prepared to receive because your asking has to be backed with preparation. Your asking has to be backed with faith. With faith is action. So he went and gathered the bride's price in hope, in faith, as a plan that he is going to get and he's going to succeed. So what are you asking for that you're not preparing for? Some of you are single and you're asking for a spouse. Yet, you're spending too much time on Facebook, spending too much time in front of the TV. You're out of shape. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not even putting yourself out there. You're going to get what you're prepared to receive. Some of you are saying that you want to go and become financially independent. But there you go again, buying another purse or another tool or another tablet, a new computer with debt, which means you're preparing for what? You're preparing for poverty. You're preparing for more pressure under debt. What I just taught you this afternoon was preparing you for financial independence. All of that spanking you got, the bruises on your backside, okay? That was all for preparation for what's to come. You're the one that says you want to be financially independent. Okay, well, let me prepare you for what's to come. So if you leave First Step to Success and you don't have the package War on Debt, if you don't have the financial independence whole system, what are you preparing for? You're preparing for the same as what you've already had. So if you leave here without our financial independence system, you leave here without that, you're simply saying that was a nice message. Thank you, but no thanks. I think I'm going to stay on my poverty path. You're saying you want to grow a business, or you're saying you want to grow in your career? Where's the proof? You're going to get what you're preparing for. You're going to get what you're prepared to receive, young lady. I want to be married. Well, then you better start walking like the bride, which means you have to let go and release all of your past. You're saying you want to succeed. That means you have to let go. I want to find somebody that's going to help me run my business. Then you have to let go of the last 3 or 4 who totally jacked your business. You have to let go and start preparing. How many of you have had a baby, or you were a husband who planted a baby? When did you start preparing for the baby? How many of you ladies changed the way you ate? Why? Why did you change the way you eat? Why? Because you were preparing what? For the baby. You will get what you're prepared to receive. Here's the proof. And he made his camels kneel down outside the city by a fountain of water at evening time. This is not the time to fall asleep, I promise you. This is about to get good. The time when women go out to draw water. And he said, verse 12, pay very close attention. Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, please cause her to meet before me this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here by the fountain of water, as though God doesn't see him standing by the water. I think he said it to remind himself that that's where he was standing. And the daughters of men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please lay down your jar to let me drink, and she says, drink and let me water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Yitzhak, And let me know by this that you have shown loving commitment to my master. Let's pick this apart. First of all, in my Bible, I highlighted in blue every single prayer that somebody prayed. I highlighted in a different color every time God spoke. I highlighted a different color every time somebody said, thus saith the Lord, so I could get to know and hear the voices that were talking versus it just being words. So this is a really powerful prayer. What is one thing you notice about this prayer? Very, very specific. Nothing becomes very specific. What else do we notice about this prayer? Huh? I can't hear you. You have to talk louder. He's asking for confirmation. The first thing I notice about this prayer is it's not some religious prayer. I mean, come on. Oh, Lord, in heaven, we love you today. And we thank you today. And we call upon your holy name. And this day on the 11th of January of 2019, it just sounds like he's talking to somebody. There isn't some religious formula in this prayer. He calls him by name, Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham. Please cause her to meet me before this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here before the fountain. See, I'm right here. And the daughters of men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young women to whom I say, please let down your jar and let me drink. And she says, drink and let me water your camels too. He's just talking. There's not like this strange religious prayer. He's just talking. You know why this isn't a strange religious prayer? Because there weren't any churches yet. There was no seminary. It's just a normal guy. Oh, by the way, wow. So who is talking to God? Just a normal guy. Just a normal guy is talking. It's very specific. It's pretty risky. What else do you notice about this prayer and what he's asking? He's making it God's problem and not his own. I've done that many times. Stuff with me and Hans, I'm like, dude, you got a problem with him. I'm not kidding you. Hans would be like stubborn on something. I'm like, I'm going to talk to your boss. I would. I'd go talk to his boss and just leave it right there. All right. There's not really a problem between the two of us, so you got to figure this out. I'm not going to control and manipulate anymore. Fix me and fix him. We're screwing up and not setting a very good example for you. So another thing is that he is praying for the fulfillment of his boss's vision. He's praying for the fulfillment of his boss's vision. I have a question for you. Are you doing that? Are you praying for the fulfillment of your boss's vision? Are you praying for the fulfillment of your wife's vision? Are you praying for the fulfillment of your husband's vision? Are you praying for the fulfillment of your kids' vision? Are you praying for the fulfillment of your friend's vision, your parents' vision? Are you praying for the fulfillment of other people's vision? Are you asking for the fulfillment of somebody else's vision? Or are you just always only asking for yourself? He's asking for somebody else. And it came to be, before he had ended speaking, that see, Rivkah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the young woman who was good looking, a maiden, no man have knowing her, meaning she hadn't had sex yet, and she went down to the fountain, filled her jar, and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. And she said, drink, my master. And she hurried and let her jar down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, let me draw water for your camels too until they have finished drinking. And the servant jumped up and down and said, you're it! Oh my gosh! I'm so glad to meet you! Yes! 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 Nope. Verse 21. And watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yahweh had prospered his way or not. Poker face. He put on a poker face like, How many of us jump the gun? And then we try to force what perhaps could be God moving, and we try to force it to happen. We try to squeeze it through. Third pregnancy. Nauseous 24/7 for almost 9 straight months. I'm walking up hills. I walked 5 miles, breaking sweat. I gotta get this kid out of me. I am done being nauseous. I would crawl to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I would pass out in the shower. I'd pass out in the middle of a presentation. Literally, I had somebody right here with a pen ready, and I'd feel myself starting to black out. Whoo, and they would just take over the presentation. I would just sit the entire pregnancy. I used my closing skills to force the doctor to break my water. Went to the hospital, I'm having contractions. As soon as I get to the hospital, the contractions stop. I convinced him to let me stay overnight. The next morning, 7:30, he says, if you're not having any contractions tomorrow morning, I'm sending you home. He came in, I'm having no contractions. I used my closing skills to get him to break my water. Cabe was born 15 minutes later. He was born blue. They miscalculated his date. They told me I was 37 weeks. He was not 37 weeks. He was only 34 weeks, and his lungs had not yet been developed. And because I forced my will, I almost lost my first son. But the servant in silence watched to see if it might be Yahweh blessing his way. Oh, I have cried for 5 straight hours, friends. I couldn't hold my son. He was in an incubator, not knowing if he was going to make it. Because I got ahead of God, pushed my will and my way. Patient. Poker face. Is this God? Let's watch and see. And it came to be when the camels had finished drinking, that the man took a golden nose ring weighing half of a shekel and 2 bracelets for her wrists weighing 10 shekels of gold, and said, "Whose daughter are you? Please inform me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, Michah's son, whom she bore to Nahor." And she said to him, "We have both straw and fodder, enough to room to spend the night." And the man bowed down his head and worshiped Yahweh. You know, God answers prayers and we forget to thank him for it. We tend to be going so fast, we just keep rolling. Here we lay out this thing like, please, like, give me a sign. If she says this and she does this, then this might be the one. And then he answers it, and what do? We just keep going. We forget that we even cried out. We don't even recognize that he did what he did. How apt is he to continue to answer your prayers if you're not even thanking him when he does it? Think about that. Have you made a list of all that he did last year for you? About 25 years ago, I started to journal every prayer, and then I would go back and put the date when he answered it. It's part of how I built my faith. I still have those journals. And he said, blessed be Yahweh Elohim of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving commitment and his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, Yahweh led me to the house of my master's brother. So, bottom line, the parents agreed, she agreed, they went back to Yitzhak, and they were married. She's one of the mothers of all of Israel. So I see very clearly here that God has a message for us for this year. Number one, I believe that he's going to show up and show off in ways that you cannot even imagine. I believe that with my whole heart. I believe that you are going to have to do just what this manager had to do, and he had to release his objections. He needed to speak them out, and those objections were handled, and he chose to believe the truth. And with the story of their people, he chose to hold on to that story, and he prepared himself to find what he was looking for. And he didn't assume that the first woman that came was her, but he watched to see, is this her? And as the story plays out, as soon as he goes and meets his parents, he then tells the story again. And he shares the entire story of her at the well, the entire story of Abraham being blessed, being out there. He tells the whole story. Facts tell, stories sell. He tells the entire story, and he says to them, in fact, I got to find it because it's so awesome. This is probably one of the greatest closes. It's verse 49. And now, if you are going to show loving commitment and truth to my master, let me know. And if not, let me know so that I turn to the right or to the left. Are you in or out? Are you in or out? After he's telling the whole story about how this happened to her parents, he simply says, are you in or out? It's right here. And now, if you're going to show loving commitment and truth to my master, let me know. And if not, let me know so that I turn to the right or to the left. In or out? Are you in or not? Again, not trying to force the hand, not trying to make something that isn't. It's, is this you or not? Are you the one I'm looking for or not? Not awesome, bless you. Bless you. Thank you. Go up to verse 60. And it says, and they blessed Rivkah, they, as in her family, blessed her and said to her, let our sister become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let your seed possess the gates of those who hate them. Let your seed possess the gates that hate them. That is Israel right now, surrounded by people who hate them. This is the mother of that tribe. First Sarah, then her. So, let's wrap it up. So let's go back. What do we have? We have a man that was blessed in all his ways and in every way. And the question is, why? You need to search that out. And if God blessed him, why not you? He was not a sinless man. He was not a sinless man. So whatever he promised to him, why not promise to you? He says that he's not a respecter of any man. He doesn't play favorites. But there is a reason why he blesses some, and there is actually, he gives all of us the choice to receive blessing or to receive a curse. He says in Deuteronomy, he gives us the path to blessing, he gives us the path to a curse. And we get to make that choice every single day, every single minute of the day. We see, obviously, that Abraham is not a controlling leader. We see that he is a delegator, and he gives authority to the person that he has appointed. We see also that he picks with wisdom, that he picks someone that has a proven track record, that has shown themselves to be trustworthy, to handle a very, very, very delicate task that could have a massive impact on his entire bloodline and all of the wealth of his entire family. And yet he is willing to charge somebody with that duty and trust in them to get the job done. We see that the servant, the manager, has an objection. His but whatabouts, just like you and I have these but whatabouts, and the objection is handled how? With a story. It's with a story. So it's with the story of how we came to this, and he appoints him and goes, go. Go. His messengers are going to go with you, which are angels, by the way. His messengers are going to go with you. They go before you. And by the way, what did he say? By the way, if you don't find her, you are released from this agreement. So he takes the pressure off him. He handles the objection. He does the risk reversal. Okay? We see that faith then steps out. And what's the proof that he stepped out in faith? He was prepared to find the bride. How do we see that he was prepared to find the bride? He brought the bride's price with him. He brought the bride's price with him. So we see that we are being told that we better prepare for what we're asking for. We better prepare what we're asking for. We better prepare what we're asking for. If we are controlling, we better let go of the control. If we're trying to force, we better let go of trying to force things to happen. Faith is an adventure. It's exploration to find it, not to force it, but to find it. We see in verse 12 that he asks for help from who? God. He asks for help, and he says, please, and he gives a very what? Specific request, a very specific request. Nothing ambiguous, nothing that is left up for interpretation. There's no need for interpretation there, is there? Guys, are you listening to me? He did not show up a prayer that was some religious prayer that's open-ended and non-specific. He made it very, 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 very specific and very, 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 very narrow so he'd have his answer. That stuff is nasty. Which is so powerful and speaks to me so much. Get specific with what you're asking for, and then pick up the items that are preparation to receive what you're asking for. So we get specific. It looks like it's happening. So what does he do? So what are you going to do when it looks like it's coming to fruition? Poker face, baby. Poker face. It's like me and Hans. He decides after we have Cabe, we're done having kids. We're having no more children. I have more babies in me. I gotta have more kids. He's like, done. I got my boy, I got my girl, we're done. No more kids, I don't want any more pressure, I don't want any more responsibility, we're done. I'm crying, I'm weeping, I'm praying. I'm fighting him, I'm cussing him out, I'm manipulating him, I'm pressuring him. I'm being mean, I'm hugging the side of the bed. What am I preparing for? No more children. That's what I was preparing for. Versus Erica's story, who was preparing for what? To be trusted one day to go on a camping trip because of how she handled his answer of no, not at this time. Yes, Dad, thank you for protecting me. Versus me, where he tells me we're not gonna have more kids. You can't control me like that. I judged my husband, I lashed out at him, I performed all kinds of witchcraft against him as a Christian going to church and teaching Bible studies. Manipulation's witchcraft. Until the day he looked me in the eyes and we are screaming at each other about this issue. And he says, if you think you're supposed to have more kids, then why don't you just go talk to your God with his neck doing all this? Why don't you go talk to your God? I'm like, that's a great idea. I'll be right back. And I ran into my closet and I laid on the floor and I cried out. I said, God, this ain't working. So if this desire that I have is not from you, take it away. I laid down this desire. I give it to you. I don't want it anymore. And if we are supposed to have more kids, then you got a problem. You got to plant the desire in him. But meanwhile, please take mine away or soften it out because it is killing me. I got up. I walked out of my closet. I went and I kissed him, cooked dinner, went about my day. And never brought it up again. Not once. Not once. 2 months later. I stopped hugging the side of the bed, by the way, ladies. And I started to hug him. I put some lipstick on and some high heels. I was now preparing. No, literally, I literally did. And God softened my desire. It was a small little whisper versus an aggressive, fierce, painful, forcing, manipulative push. And if you have a desire in your heart that's doing that to you, it's time to lay that sucker down. If you have something that is driving you hard, it's time to lay it down. This is where I learned to say, God, I want your desires in me. I don't want my desires in me. I want your desires in me. I don't want my desires in me. My desires are crap. They lead me to some unhealthy places. Plant your desires in me. Plant your desires in me. 2 months later, we are at Tony Roma's, back when I used to eat pork. Love pork. Tony Roma's has the best ribs and that Carolina honey barbecue sauce. We're having a date afternoon. It's December 2nd. And I'm just chomping on a whole rack of ribs because the girl knows how to eat. And Hans says, you know what, honey, I've been thinking. I'm like, yeah. I've been thinking, what you thinking about? I'm thinking we should have 2 more kids. Poker face. Got some corn. Cornbread. I'll eat the baked beans. Tell me more more about that. Well, I've been thinking that if we got pregnant in a month, Cade would be 3 years older than this next child, and that's almost being a single child, and I wouldn't want that kid to be a single child, so I'm thinking we should have 2 versus just 1. So when are you thinking we should do something about this? Are you going to eat that? It's well, we're going up to Washington, to see my grandparents and everybody. Why don't you, take the IUD out right when we get back? Okay. January 2nd, IUD was removed. January 2nd, Roman was conceived. How do I know? Doctor said you're ovulating. It's worth a shot. I said, well, I know how to take care of the shot. Hans left for 2 weeks the next day. By the time he came home, I had already taken a pregnancy test and I was already pregnant. That's what happens when you let go. That's what happens when you let go. That's what happens when you let go. I was not asking for 2 more kids. I was only asking for 1. I got Roman and Micah. Don't tell anybody, but they're the smartest ones. None of them are here this weekend. If they hear, I know it was you. So you better keep your mouth shut. They are the most brilliant. They are the most talented. They are the most amazing. I'm not saying my other 3 are stupid. I'm just saying that these other 2 are their intelligence level is, they pulled from generations from us. They did. They are a different breed altogether, these last 2. So, poker face. Poker face. Don't freak out. Don't get overly excited. Just go, okay, God, is this you? Is this you? Bite that rib. Make it a beef one, though. Beef is better than pork. Shut up. So we see the man then do his own presentation, which is a story. He shows the problem. My master sends me here. My boss sent me here to find a wife. So I had to talk to God, and I told God this. And then she showed up. She said exactly what I asked. So, dude, this all is a little weird, but is she it or not? Just tell me so I can be on my way. Not, I know this is from God. I know this is from God. I prayed. I see the signs. I know this is God. No, when it's God, you don't have to convince the other person. No manipulation needed. No force needed. So he's like, are you it or not? I don't want you to be it. I just need to know if you're it or not. In or out? They said in. And the final point, they blessed her. One of the things I love about the Hebrew culture is it's a culture of blessing. Right now, it's Shabbat. And tonight, in millions of homes all over the world, the husbands have sang Proverbs 31 as a blessing over their brides. They bless their women. They bless their strength. They bless their intelligence. They bless their beauty. They bless their children. They bless themselves. They ask him to bless them daily. They thank him for the blessing of the food. They thank him for blessing that their bodies work. The minute they get up in the morning, thank you for returning my soul back to me. When they go and use the restroom, every time they use the restroom, thank you that all of my organs are working properly. And there are these holes where the toxins can leave. No joke. No joke. This is a real thing. They take into account all that he has blessed them with versus taking advantage of him. So these are some simple things you can do this year. There's someone that's been blessed, study. Why? Uncover the riddle. One thing I can see, he was not controlling. He was a good shepherd of people. He lifted people up, gave them authority, sent them out, believed in them, inspired them, empowered them. That's good leadership. And if you are an up-and-coming leader, we see the good example this man says. Not afraid to say what was in his heart. Okay, this is kind of what I'm feeling. Can you help me out here? Yeah, bam. Objection handled. Yes, sir. I'm on it. I'm out. And he goes. Leaves his whatabouts behind. So to sum it all up, I believe this is a year of blessing for you. Will you receive it? I believe this is a year of releasing what needs to be released. Because a message that's been stirring inside of me for the last month and a half is this. Release and behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. That story is about that. Behold, he made all things new. He brought a new bride. They had twins. Those twins were Esau and Isaac. Esau and Jacob. Jacob's name was eventually turned to Israel. Thus came the people of Israel. That was a new thing. Behold, I make all things new. But what about my debt? Behold, I make all things new. But what about my cancer? Behold, I make all things new. But what about my spouse who doesn't believe in me? Behold, I make all things new. But what about my kids who are on a bad path? Behold, I make all things new. I can't hear you. Behold, I make all things new. But what about my boss who doesn't give me enough recognition? Behold, I make all things new. But my spouse and I hate each other. Behold, I make all things new. But what about the job market? It's too hard to find the right people. Behold, I make all things new. But what about the fact that I don't make enough money? Behold, I make all things new. But what about my vision of being able to travel? Behold, I make all things new. Give me your what but abouts. But what about my lack of confidence? Behold, I make all things new. But what about my past failures? Behold, I make all things new. What if I got to do it by myself? Behold, I make all things new. Louder. What if I end up in a divorce? Behold, I make all things new. What if I get deported? Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. What if they won't talk to me ever again? Behold, I make all things new. What if they won't listen to me? Is exactly what Moshe said to God. Behold, I make all things new. Anyone? What if I screw it up and make the wrong choice? Behold, I make all things new. What if I get fired? Behold, I make all things new. What if I'm not physically capable? Behold, I make all things new. What if I can't afford it? Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. What if they reject me? Behold, I make all things new. What if I'm asked to move and I don't want to? Behold, I make all things new. Like he can give you a new desire. Lay down the desire. Come on. What if I'm not smart enough? Oh, girlfriend, do I know that one? Oh, girlfriend, do I know that one? Oh, do I know that one? Oh, behold, I make all things new. What if I relapse? Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I can't hear you. I make all things new. Don't leave me hanging. Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. What if this next child has a worse birth defect? Behold, I make all things new.
What if I've had 4 miscarriages after having a child with birth defects?
Behold, he makes all things new.
Amen.
He says, I am Yahweh, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Is there anything too difficult for me? Jeremiah 32:27, man, is one of my favorite scriptures. I am the creator of the heavens and the earth. Is there anything impossible for me? He wants you to believe for the impossible so he can show you how much he loves you. So he can show you how real he is. So will you be willing to lay down the desires that are causing anxiety in your life and causing you to manipulate and causing you to force and causing you to control? Just let go. God, I give you my desires. I want your desires planted in me. I want my desires out of me. I want you to question every single one of your desires. I want you to hand over every one of your desires. Some of them are for him, some of them are not. Give them back. Because he makes all things new. And that is your theme for this year, for you. That is your answer to all things this year. Behold, he makes all things new. That's the answer to every one of your excuses. That is your thought replacement method. Your answer to everything. But I can't afford it. Behold, he makes all things new. Danny, I want to go to Israel. It's $5,500. Behold, he makes all things new. Danny, but I want to do this. Behold, he makes all things new. That very tape, what if I'm not smart enough? Oh, girlfriend. And here was the reality. What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not smart enough to do this? We want to impact 100 million lives by 2035. That's the vision for DannyJohnson.com. That's our big, hairy, audacious goal. 100 million lives by 2035. And the thought that comes at me is, what if you don't have what it takes? And here's my answer. I've never had what it took. I've never had what it took. I've never had what it took. I never had what it took to become a millionaire. I never had what it took to be married for 25 years. I didn't have what it took to be a mom who was dedicated and devoted. I didn't have what it took to walk away from addictions. I didn't have what it took to walk away from debt. I didn't have what it took to lead millions of people. I didn't have what it took. I never have. But it's He in me that's stronger than He that is standing here. It's He. Because in all of my mishaps and my stupidity and all of my weaknesses and all of my frailties and all of my idiosyncrasies, He makes all things new. I was dyslexic for 30 years of my life, more than 30 years. He made all things new. I don't have dyslexia anymore. I just finished reading in front of you perfectly. I even spoke Hebrew in front of you. Behold, He makes all things new. The girl who couldn't read, the girl who stuttered. Do you understand? The girl who broke out in big red patches all over my body, who swore I would never speak in front of people. Behold, He makes all things new. I'm not good at marriage. Behold, He makes all things new. All things. All is all. All is all. So what's the all you're going to ask for? What's the all you're going to prepare to receive? What's your all? Let's pray. Father, You're amazing. There truly is no one like You. Thank You for Your book. Thank You for Your wisdom. Thank You for teaching a stupid person like me. Thank You, Father, that Abraham actually almost resembles You. Wow. And how Abraham appoints somebody to go and do the impossible. He assigns him and trusts that Your promise is going to come to pass. Thank You, Father, that You've assigned all of us to walk with You. Thank You for planting the desire in us to want to know You more. Thank You, Father, that You're asking us to release everything from last year and the year before and the year before all the way back to infinity. You're asking us to let it go, to release it, so that You may release blessing over us just as You released blessing over Abraham, and that You blessed him in every way. Oh, God, there's no one like You. Thank You for challenging us today. Thank You for speaking today. You're so good. If there's anybody here, just keep your eyes closed and just kind of stay in this space. If there's anybody here that you got things that you need to make right with your God, that maybe you haven't trusted Him, that you've been living in the camp of whatabouts, that you've made Him smaller than what He is. You have an assignment, and that assignment might be a business, that assignment might be a job,
That job might be raising your kids, and yet you haven't given it your all. Tonight's the night you can make it right with him. If when you heard my story about the Messiah, that the Father told his people that he would send his Messiah that would save his people from their sins, that would cover them as a sin offering, as a guilt offering for all of our failures. When you heard that story about me being 13 and receiving him inside my very soul and something new, behold, I make all things new, that rose up inside of me, and you are curious about that, and you want that. You can sense that there's a presence in here, and you want to have that presence in you. I want to give you that chance tonight to receive him, to devote your ways to him. It doesn't mean you become some strange religious person that no one can identify with or wants to. It just means that, much like Abraham's manager, you're going to talk to him. You're going to commit your ways to him to try to learn about him. And maybe walk away from some things that you shouldn't be walking in any longer. And that he will help you do that. So if that's something that you want to do, I just want you to put up your hand really quick. Awesome. Awesome. You can put your hands down. I want to first start with you who just put your hand up. Please just come to the front of the stage. I want to get the chance to pray with you, and I've got a gift for you also. Just right here, and snuggle in because there's a lot of them. And any others of you that you've been off track, haven't trusted him. Tonight's the night to make it right with him. So just let's all snuggle up. He loves and he adores you. And the very moment that you confess this, and the very moment that you come forward, this is that moment where you actually are made righteous in him. It's that place of repentance. It's that place where you say, man, I've messed this up. I'm sorry. It's my fault, not anybody else's. You know, he's never given us a reason not to trust him. It's our own timelines and our own control that create the environment for us not to trust him. It's our own decision to trust him or not to trust him. When bad things happen, we got to trust him. When good things happen, we got to thank him. Anybody else? You're sitting there and you're saying, I feel in my belly, I need to get up out of my seat. You want to like say no to stubbornness right now? Stubbornness is a form of witchcraft. That ain't going to help you. It's not going to bring anything good to you. Okay. Okay, I'm up, Danny, I'm up. Okay, I'm coming up. This is really simple. Just pray this after me. Say, Heavenly Father, thank you. I hear you. I heard this message that you prepared for me. A message you wrote thousands of years ago. And it nailed me between the eyes. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for willing to teach me. I'm sorry for what I've done. Please forgive me for the choices I've made. Doesn't matter what anybody else has done to me or against me. I own my reaction to that. Forgive me for the things my mouth has spoken, the places I've gone. Forgive me for my stubbornness. Forgive me for playing around with control, looking for a guarantee. Forgive me for running wild with my own desires that have kicked me in the backside. I give you my desires right now. I want you to list them. I want you to list the desires that you're going to hand to him. All of them. The ugly ones, the good ones, the bad ones, all of them. Just list it. Okay, just as that manager did. Like, okay, dude, I'm afraid. What if she doesn't come with me? Just go ahead and list them. Get them out of your mouth. I can't hear you. So what is the desire? Not the excuse, the desire. God, I hand you my desire to make millions of dollars. I hand you my desire to lose weight. I hand you my desire to get promoted. Whatever your desire is, I give you my desire to pay off debt. I leave this desire, this dream of mine to fill in the blank. Go ahead, just list it all. Just hand it to him. Forgive me for trying to control the outcome, trying to force things to happen, trying to making it look like it came from you, and trying to convince everybody around me that it came from you. Trying to convince myself. I lay these desires down, and I leave them here. Plant in me your desires. I am yours. You made me. You made me this way on purpose, with my strengths and my weaknesses. And you have blessed me. So you know what you made me for. I give you my life. I give you my talent, my skill, my ability, my money, my reputation. Wow. I give you all that I own. Forgive me for thinking that I created it all on my own. I devote all my ways to you. I give you my stupidity, and I give you also where I think I'm smart. Forgive me for all the times that I've thought I'm smarter than I am. I confess with my mouth and I believe with my heart that you sent your son, his name, Yeshua, which means salvation. Jesus, the Messiah. You sent him to die on a cross. Seems kind of brutal. But you sent him that I might live. That if I believe in him and confess that I believe in him, that I will have life, everlasting life. I open my heart to you, and I receive forgiveness for everything I've confessed tonight. May I ask you to bless me. Bless my head. Bless my hands. Bless my heart. Bless my eyes. Bless my ears. Bless my mouth. Bless my voice. Bless my soul and my feet. Bless everything I touch. Bless everywhere I go. Fill me with your Spirit, your Holy Spirit. Yes. And bless me with the gifts of the Spirit. The gift to heal. The gift to encourage. The gift to prophesy. To motivate. The gift to discern evil from good. The gift of hospitality. That if I show hospitality to strangers, I might be entertaining angels, just as Abraham did, and several others. Bless me with the gift of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And bless me with the gift of forgiveness. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Bless my finances. My work, my reputation. Bless my seed, my family, my extended family, my co-workers. Bless the leaders that are around me. Bless our government and all of its officials. And bless this next 12 months. Let me see your hand and your ways in everything I do. I want you to ask right now for just one thing that's on your heart that you want to ask for. You want to make a commitment to prepare for. What is it that you want? Be specific. Be specific. And just go ahead and ask him right here, right now. He's here. And he can hear. He's here. Can you feel him? Don't be afraid. Press through, press through, press through, press through. Ask for that wild and crazy thing that you're afraid to believe for. Like that baby. says, you have not because you ask not. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. Ask, 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 ask. Ask as though he's saying yes. Ask as though he's saying yes. Ask as though you're going to get it. Ask as though you're going to get it. You're awesome, God. You're awesome, God. You're awesome, God. Friends, I asked for the craziest things this past year. I did. And I can't even say that I totally believed it was going to happen because I didn't even think about it. But if you're afraid to ask, just simply say this. Wow, I wonder if this could happen. Wouldn't it be great if? Can you say that with me? Wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if? Let's say that again. Wouldn't it be great if? I said that about 5 things last year. And I forgot about them. It's like, man, wouldn't it be great if? I'm a little strange. I really am. I'm a little retarded in one particular area of my life. Probably several, but there's one I'm really retarded in. And I literally was like, man, wouldn't it be great if this could happen? 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 And every single one of them happened. Miraculously. Every single one of them happened. Miraculously. Been in tears off and on for a month and a half as numbers were coming in. And seeing that everything that I said, God, wouldn't it be great if? There was no control over the outcome. I had a long timeline for it. Man, within 5 years, it'd be great if this could happen. It didn't happen in 5 years. It happened in 1. I'm saying huge, man. Huge. For me, huge. Huge. Man, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if? What is your wouldn't it be great if? What is your wouldn't it be great if? 170 clients. Is that what you said? Wouldn't it be great if I can get 170 clients? Wouldn't it be great if I got 5,000 what? Trucks on the books? Wouldn't it be great if? Doesn't matter when it happens. Wouldn't it be great if? What's your wouldn't it be great if? In response to what about? Instead of what about? The answer is he makes all things new. Oh. So if behold, you make all things new, wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if my family is loving God? Wouldn't it be great if they're walking with him? And what you got to do is you got to let go of maybe some religiosity of what that looks like. You know what I mean? You got to be willing to go, okay, God, whatever that looks like, wouldn't it be great if my kids were walking with you? My whole family was walking with you, whichever way that looks. Because I look a little strange, don't I? People from the religious world would look at me and say, she doesn't walk with God. Not with those leather pants. And those red shoes and those red lips. She certainly doesn't walk with God. Not with that past. There's no way. Do you understand? And she's a businesswoman and leads people to God in the business world. A hotel becomes holy. Right? What about, behold, he makes all things new? Wouldn't it be great if your parents accept? Wouldn't it be great if? What's your wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if I couldn't recognize my life a year from now? Yes. It will be great when you cannot recognize your life a year from now. It will be great. So how will you prepare for that? Right. You already did the first step. You're here. If you don't have a wouldn't it be great if, ask him for one. Right? You just asked him for his desires. You just asked him for his desires, so now go ahead. Wouldn't it be great if?
I was doing what I was designed to do.
And you knew it. That's the main thing. I spent far too long looking for something else that I was supposed to do. Because all of the religious programming in my head, I was looking to fit in a different box. Until I realized I was already in it. I was already in it. I was already doing what I was designed to do. And once I accepted that, I owned that thing. Let's go. Let's go. Hasn't always been easy. A little scary. And when I go and try to fit in somebody else's thing, just want to throw up. It's not me. Not what he designed me for. What is, wouldn't it be great if? What's yours? Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new.
I see my coworkers saved and my ministry
Yes.
from the inside out.
Yes. Wouldn't it be great if he used you to do that? He said, wouldn't it be great if my industry changed and all of them got saved from whatever it is that they are walking in and how they're living? That your entire industry will come to him. Wouldn't it be great if you got to see that with your own eyes? And wouldn't it be great if he used you to bring a portion of it? It will be great, son. It will be great. And by the way, he loves your whole form. He formed you on purpose. Just like that. He likes every bit of it. Wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be great if I was able to help medically people and animals? Wouldn't it be great if? It will be great. It will be great. Wouldn't it be great if you sold 1 million copies of your book? It will be great. What will you do to prepare for it? You got to print them. You have to learn how to sell them. You need to launch an entire marketing campaign. You've got to learn the skills to get the book out there. That's how you prepare. I want you to spend some time with him tonight, pondering, wouldn't it be great if? When I was homeless, that very phrase, wouldn't it be great if I could help homeless people one day? Wouldn't it be great if I never returned back to broke again? Wouldn't it be great if I could actually be married? I could be loved. Wouldn't it be great if I could rise up and do something great with my life? Wouldn't it be great if I could help people from my pain, be able to help people? Wouldn't it be great if I could have children one day? Because after my firstborn was given up for adoption, I got pregnant again and had a tubal pregnancy that ruined the inside of me, and I was told I would never have children again. Wouldn't it be great? 4 miracle babies. 4 miracle babies. I remember saying, wouldn't it be great if my oldest baby, my firstborn that I screwed up so bad with, that we could be together again. She lives 10 minutes from me. She lives 10 minutes from me. I see her every week. Her kids are my grandkids. Our family is together. That's a miracle. She should hate me. But he makes all things new. I'm so excited to do this year with you. I'm so excited to see new stories that will come out of you. I'm so excited for all the lives that you are going to touch. I'm so excited about the people that are assigned to your life. I'm so excited about the debt you are going to demolish this year. I'm so excited about the lives that we are going to change together. I'm so excited about the pain that's going to leave your body and your heart. I'm so excited about the marriages that are going to be from cold to hot, hot, hot. I am so excited about the new babies that are going to be planted this year and born this year. Yes, I am so excited about you telling your story and inspiring thousands of people through social media or videos or whatever. I am so excited about all the lives that you're going to touch and inspire, and you're not even going to know about them. Most of them you will never know about, but he knows. I'm so excited about how you're going to train up your children to succeed, how you will train them up financially, how you'll train them up with people skills, how you'll train them up with healthy emotional skills, the ones you're trying to learn, that I am also learning. I'm so excited about the cities we are going to go to this year. I'm so excited about going to Israel with some of you in March for my 50th birthday trip. My 50th birthday celebration trip will be with a small group of people in Israel. I'm so excited about that trip and the things we're going to learn together. I am so excited about the orphans that we will feed, the wells we will dig, the houses we will build, and the trafficked that we will free. I am so excited about living my life with you, my family, and your family. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for believing. And thank you for laying your heart down before him, making things right with him, and pressing in more to him, because there's much in store for you. Now go to bed. Don't go to the bar. Go to bed. I'll see you at 9:30. Wait. I have a Bible for you if you want one. I said I had a gift. If anyone needs one, I'd love to give it to you. It's the best book ever written.